Hello, my name is Vince. That's it.
Hi, my name is Ivan.
Daniel.
And I'm Alejandro, and this is our AC Circuits video team. Alright, here we're going to measure voltage peak to peak. Basically, it works the same way as frequency. We're going to measure the squares it takes from one peak maximum to minimum, the bottom peak. So it takes about 3 squares from one peak. So we're going to multiply that by 2, and that equals 6. And since the voltage on the y-axis is 2 volts per square, 6 times 2 is about 12. When we do this calculation old school method, we get the VRMS4 divided by 0.707, which gives us 5.6, that number, and then we multiply that by 2, and that gives us 11.315, and that is voltage peak to peak. Alright, so to figure out our volts RMS, what we do is we take our volt peak to peak, which was 11.6, divide that by 2, which gives us volt peak. Then with volt peak, which is 5.8, we multiply that by 0.707, and that gives us 4.1 VRMS. Alright, to measure the period of a wave, what you're going to do is count the amount of squares it takes for one cycle to complete. So here, it takes about 8 cycles. So what you do then is you multiply 8 by the amount of time, and that should give you about 1.6 milliseconds.
Just more typing.
Right here we're using the old school method. Basically what you want to do is you want to count the squares that takes for one wavelength to complete. Here it takes about 8.2 squares to complete a wavelength. So what you want to do is use the old school formula. Frequency equals 1 over time. Therefore, 1 divided by 8.2 to the negative 6 equals that. And then we divide that answer by 200, and that gives us our frequency. And the number that we got right there, 2 times 10 to the negative 6 power, that's going to be 200 nanoseconds right there. Alright, using the old school method to measure voltage peak to peak with channel 2, we're going to count the squares. 1, 2, that's it, about 2.8. Now we're going to multiply that by 2, so 2.8 times 2 equals 5.6. And since we are going at 500 millivolts, we will have to multiply that by 2. And our voltage peak to peak is 11.2. To measure our VRMS, we take our peak to peak, 11.2, divide that by 2. 5.6 is our answer, and we'll take that and multiply it by 0.707. And 3.9592 is our answer for volts RMS. In order to measure the frequency, what we're going to do is count the squares it takes for one period. So that was about 8.2. So we enter that into our calculator. 1 over 8.2 to the negative 6, which gives us that number, and we divide it by 200, and it gives us a frequency of 609.75.
Alright, now we're going to measure volts and frequency in what's called the new school method, which just does it all for us on the oscilloscope. Okay, so we're going to hit measure, and then we're going to go to voltage, and we're going to scroll down to volts peak to peak. That's the VPP, and you can see here now it's 11.6, and that's concurrent with the data that we got from our calculations. And then for frequency, we're going to go to time, this one, and then scroll to frequency. Alright, and you can see, if we just clear this, do it again, it's okay, we'll just do it. Alright, time, frequency, and a little.
If you get stars, all you have to do is run auto,
There we go.
and then we'll get the frequency, which is 595.2 hertz. And then let's go to period. And right here we have frequency, we have frequency right here on the left, period on the right, and next we're going to show you voltage RMS.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's our volts RMS.